Hello, everyone. It is I, Dr. Jimmy. Now, I can sort of hear, if I listen carefully, any young people who may have stumbled across this video accidentally going, "Who the hell is Dr. Jimmy?" And yes, I might have to explain myself for those of you who aren't acquainted with me, even though I've been around a very long time, obviously. Well, you see, back in ancient days, the 2010s, uh, I was one of the very first. In fact, I started in the 2000s, actually. I was one of the very first YouTubers that posted about Halloween Horror Nights. That was a long time ago, before anyone had all of the fancy things they do now. I didn't have any editing or any special effects. There weren't little clips and animations. I never asked anyone to subscribe and ring my bell or anything like that because it was, early days. But I gathered a sort of reputation for being in the know about some of the things going on. This comes from very carefully keeping your eyes and ears open, and also using a little bit of creative imagination occasionally. What do we call that? Speculation. Weeding out what I thought was spurious and keeping what I thought sounded good. Occasionally getting a rumor or something, a little hearing something somewhere. I can't go into any further detail, but at any rate, there's a bunch of feral cats that hang out around the sprung tents. They come and tell me stuff. At any rate, and I would very often figure things out ahead of time, back when they had clues on the website to lead up to the event. They don't even do that anymore. Oh, heck, nowadays they tend to spoil the whole darn thing by January. This year, oddly enough, though, I've noticed, in fact, I think Horror Night Nightmares only had the first speculation map out yesterday. Whereas in previous years they had one up in January or February, really early times. But this year it's taken them a while, and by this time of year usually they have everything spoiled. But now there's been very little coming out, and I don't know why exactly. It's almost like something else is going around Universal Orlando that's preoccupying everybody's attention. Can't think what that might be. Oh, well. Something epic or something going on, I guess. But anyway, I did get a bit of reputation for being on the nose about a lot of things. And, of course, I used to figure it all out by the end of March. And so I would always put out this lovely video. I think the first one I did was in 2011, where I just spilled all the beans and let everyone know what was going to happen that year. I've done that for 14 years so far. This is the 15th time. And I must say, I've been 100% accurate every single time. So, it's that time of year again for me to let you all know what they've got going on. Well, everyone has been distracted by all the new roller coasters and dark universes and Burks and Nintendo and Harry Pothead and everything else that's going on, and everyone's so excited about with their team member previews. And very soon, those who have already purchased their tickets for the opening days for exorbitant amounts of money and all of that's going on, I will now reveal to you all secrets of Halloween Horror Nights 34 revealed. So, what's going on this year? Well, I have made references to the big thing this year, so much resources, so much energy being fueled into the new park. Yes, that epic universe. And of course, that has been where a lot of monetary resources have been going. And as a result, although, you know, the people who are the imagination, well, you don't use the word Imagineer, that's a different property, a different company, but art and design, the creatives, the people who do that sort of thing, they want wonderful, fantastic ideas and visions, but then you have the bean counters. You say, how are we going to pay for all that shit? So basically, that's always been the problem. The people in accounting who get their little calculators and go, no, you're not going to get that kind of budget. Sorry, no. That's always going to be a problem. So they need to find a way to justify revenue. You know, we can put this on, it will make money. Yes, it'll justify the budget by the revenue that you receive. Well, somebody began to realize that the event of Halloween Horror Nights in the past few years has been bringing in more revenue than before, but not because of the haunted houses, or the shows, or the scare zones, or even the glorious merchandising. What's been helping a lot lately, oh look, we've been visited by the kitty. This is Lenny. Again, I've always had this. I mentioned the feral cats. Yes, cats. They talk to her, she talks to me. That's how I find stuff out. Cat. Nothing distracts the video like a cat showing up, eh? Years before it always happened on all the newscasters during COVID. Always have a cat showing up somewhere in my video. Always happens. She's an attention whore. But as I was saying, something has been bringing in a little extra money. And what is it? Well, it's something that tends to increase revenue for Mardi Gras and for the holidays and every other event that happens at Universal, and that's all that wonderful little food booths they set up. In fact, they've been doing, that's why in recent years they've been emphasizing the food booths more and more, and theming the food and drink booths that they set up during Horror Nights to the different haunted houses. So you can get food that's themed to the haunted house and a cocktail that's themed, because they know people are going to spend the money on the food. And so some bright boy, I'm not sure if it was one of the accounting boys or one of the creative boys, but it might be a girl too for that matter, came up with a notion, hey, why don't we just sort of combine these concepts? We can justify expenditure on haunted houses if the haunted houses themselves create revenue by selling food. That's right. The haunted houses will all be serving food this year. And what's going to happen is, you know, when you go up to one of the food booths, you don't go right up to the counter. No, that's not where you buy. You have to go to the side where they've got a little station with the fellow with the register, or usually 2 or 3 people with registers, different lines to go up there first, and you make your order and you pay for it, and then after that you go around where the window is, where they're cooking the food and preparing it. You might show them your receipt, and then they give you the lovely themed food or the cocktail. It's quite fun. It's the most interesting one. It's like in Diagon... No, it's not Diagon Alley. Silly Chibi. The other alley. Sting Alley, you know? Because you go on South Street and they have the booth set up there. And they've really themed that up every year. So you go to that one and you order the food. Then you go into Sting Alley and there's like a drink place and you can get it there. And then you go over to the food booth and they've really themed them up every year to whatever haunted house it's going to be. It's like they did it with The Last of Us a couple years ago. It was really nifty, the whole experience. And that kind of is what inspired them to do that with the haunted houses. So as you get into before you enter the queue, to the right of the queue, they'll have the register. And you don't have to buy food, of course. That they can't force you to buy food. But if you want to enjoy and enhance the haunted house experience, you go there and then you pay for it. And they have actually, it's like, you know how they have the monitors, security monitors, when you go into the haunted houses where they're watching everyone. Well, they've got the camera set up there as well. So when you go up, they get a good look at what you look like, and that goes into the computer along with your order, so they know you when you come into the haunted house. They recognize you, and oh, that's the guy who ordered this food item. And so they've already got it ready in advance because you've been on the queue for a little bit. And when you get into the house, they already have the food ready for you when you come to the point of the house where the food is served. So then you'll get that food item as part of your experience of the haunted house. It's themed to fit into the house. All very clever. It's the add to the sight and the sound and the smells and the touch, you know, and they have stuff hanging in your face or whatever. All this, now the sense of taste is incorporated into the haunted house experience. Finally, they've always had the other senses, you know, sights and sounds and smells and touches, but now finally taste, as you get to have a particular drink or a particular food item that brings you, immerses you completely into the event, even more than before, all five senses engaged. Clever, huh? So that's how it's going to be set up. And again, you don't have to purchase food items, although it will enhance your experience so much more if you do. Oh my goodness, you mean they're curating different tiers of guest experience? They've been doing that for years. Express, anybody? So, each house then will have a certain thematic food as part of the whole experience. And that means that each house has to be themed in some way to a more gastronomical theme for the entire event, because that's the way the event will be moving into the future as they incorporate more and more the money-making aspects to create more revenue to justify the event's existence, which we hope will continue. God knows the regime may close us all down in the future because, you know, Comcast is seen as an enemy. And also, they might outlaw Halloween altogether. Well, or maybe I'm just paranoid. Anyway, so the first haunted house, there'll be 10 haunted houses again this year. I don't know exactly where each one is located, except for one exception, where they're using a new and unique area for the first time ever. But 10 haunted houses, and there'll be 5 that are IPs and 5 that are wholly originals. Well, not really holy, not holy, but whole with a W, you know. Entirely original houses, more or less, and some might be inspired by different kind of tropes and stuff they've done before, but, you know, original houses, that's what we call them. And then, of course, scare zones. I haven't heard anything about entertainment, so if there's a show this year, I won't be talking about it, because it's either going to be just another nightmare fuel, probably, or something that just hasn't come through the grapevine yet. Sorry. But, so if you look here to hear about sexy dancers, I'm sure there'll be sexy dancers somewhere. Even if it's just guests. Alrighty, so the 5 IP houses. Now, they've had some rather good luck this year because recently there have been a couple of horror movies that the Universal's control that actually did so well, maybe not so well box office, but definitely well critically, that they both received massive nominations for Academy Awards. That doesn't happen very often with a horror movie. And one of these, and intriguingly, they both have some very good opportunities for this whole food theme. And the first of these is, of course, Nosferatu, the recent reimagining of the classic the classic German Dracula movie before it was Dracula, because they back in the 20s they couldn't use the name Dracula because there was still a copyright in effect from Bram Stoker's Widow, and so they called it Nosferatu, which just means vampire in a Slavic language, possibly which language is that? Romanian or something, probably, and they called the character Count Orlok instead of Dracula, and they changed all the characters' names and moved the characters from being British to being Germans. So it was rather than, and he's not going from Transylvania all the way to Britain, but over to Germany, which is a much shorter trip, and you don't have to get on, a big ship. Although somehow he gets on a ship anyway. I mean, you can go over land much easier. You could take a train, it's a lot easier. But nevertheless, he takes a ship because they copied that part of the novel. Well, in this movie version, Bill Skarsgård, of course, has quite spectacular. He's like one of the new. It's kind of like Lon Chaney and Karloff and even Vincent Price back in the day. He's become a horror movie icon for the makeup and the monsters, from playing Pennywise and now he's playing Nosferatu. He's played not the first vampire he's played, actually. Ever see it was a TV show called Hemlock Grove, I think it was. Nifty little show. So he's getting quite a reputation. His older brother also was a vampire in a TV series once upon a time. So it runs in the family. But that was a remarkable performance and a very visually striking movie. So it'd be very good for a haunted house. And they're going to do it as close as they can with all the striking visuals and amazing effects and all in glorious black and white. It should be quite lovely, Scare actor who gets to play the Willem Dafoe character is going to have a hell of a lot of fun, I imagine. It should be a wonderful haunted house, but here's the food item, because, as you know, at one point in the movie, Count Orlok displays a rather spectacular sausage. And so, that's going to be the food item. Count Orlok's Weisswurst. Now, if you know what Weisswurst is, it's a lovely German sausage of a very pale and bloodless in its appearance. And I have here a photograph to give you a good idea of what we're talking about. Here is Weisswurst. I hope you can see it. Yes. Like I said, I'm old school. I can't, they don't have an actual photo pop up. Now I have to actually get a picture on my iPad and show you. So that is the Weisswurst, and that will be served quite lovingly, like you saw in the picture. And this Weisswurst is very nice, but as you probably noticed, it has a skin on it. You have to pull the skin back before you engage the Weisswurst and put it in your mouth. So that's going to be featured similarly to the rather startling Weisswurst that was in the movie. All right. So the other movie that was a big success this past year, and lots of amazing, not just awards for makeup and costuming, but awards for like Best Picture. Didn't win the award, but was nominated for Best Picture, nominated for Best Actress. A horror movie nominated in those categories is astounding, because the Academy normally looks down its nose at horror movies. But once in a while, they say, I think Silence of the Lambs was one of the exceptions. That was over 30 years ago. But yes, The Substance. And The Substance is just amazing and surreal and has references to older horror movies like The Shining and The Fly and a few others. It's really quite fun. And Mubi, M-U-B-I, is controlled by Universal, so easy acquisition of rights, and that will be another wonderful house And I highly recommend seeing both of these pictures as your prep, and you will love them, and you'll see, oh yeah, this is going to be an awesome house with all the scenes and disgusting makeup effects and glorious set pieces that will just be amazing in a haunted house. But in the middle of the film, there is a delightful sequence where Elizabeth Sparkle, our heroine, goes a bit batshit in the food area, getting into her book of French cookery. So we have Elizabeth Sparkle's French cookery, and she looks through it. Oh, we'll eat that, we'll eat that, we'll eat that, we'll eat that. And she starts making this stuff in her kitchen, and it becomes incredible. And her alter ego crawls out of her body and looks and sees, oh my God, what was she doing? It's amazing. Yes, the art of French cookery, a bit disgusting, but then this is a haunted house, and that would be what the food opportunity in this house would be, is you get to sample some of Elizabeth Sparkle's binging on her French cookery. What fun. Yes. Okay, the third IP house. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. Check your calendars. This is the year 2025. What does that mean? Well, once upon a time in a galaxy, well, a couple of years before a galaxy far, far away, there was a little studio called Universal, and a young man, still in his 20s, kid, made a little movie for Universal about a shark. That was 50 years ago. It was 1975 when this movie... Yes, then this movie came out. And so the 50th anniversary of this seminal Universal classic, this glorious the movie that sort of started the whole blockbuster summer movie craze, and was the #1 box office film for a couple of years until Pew 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 happened in 1977. But before that, we had a bad fish. Yes, that bad fish. And we're going to celebrate that fish this year for the 50th anniversary of Jaws, which is near and dear to the hearts of many people at Universal, including some of the arts and design. I think there's certain important people in art and design or in the whole, the whole area who have, got their start working as on a boat back in the day, as a skipper. Let us pause and remember Amity 3. Yes. So, we're going to have a Jaws house. I've always wished that they would be able to pull this off. And last year they hinted at it with a Sharky jumping out at you in Slaughter Cinema to say, hey, we can do something like this. And that's what they're doing. They're going to have you to go through Amity. They're going to have little kids karate chopping the picket fences. You're going to have the Sheriff Brody. You're going to have, the scratching the chalkboard. Ugh, that's going to be scary. But you're also going to have the shark jumping out to terrorize the people of Amity Island in many key scenes. It'll be fun, even if they do it on dry land. But the creative, they'll figure out how to pull it off. And then, of course, there's going to be a beach party where you sit around and you get to have lovely New England staples like clam chowder. Yeah, delicious. So, they might have done lobster rolls, but I don't think the budget would include that. But clam chowder, yeah, you bet, with the little oyster crackers. Oh, Narragansett beer, yeah. So that's what we're going to have, the Jaws 50th anniversary beach party. So, now, let's see. The 2 remaining IPs. Yes. This is something, as you're probably aware, there's an area of Universal Studios Florida whose time is short. In about a year or so, all the contracts are going to be expired, and there's a whole area, a whole land, you might call it, that will probably go away and be replaced with something, I don't know, Pikachu? That's one of the rumors. I'm talking, of course, about the area currently Springfield, USA, or Simpsons land, because no one knew when they built it that Walt Disney Productions or the Disney Company would just buy 20th Century Fox entirely and thus control all their assets forever. And so now Disney owns The Simpsons. And that's the reason why, for the past several years, nothing has happened in that area during horror nights. You used to always have, at the very least, some chainsaws running through there, but for the past couple of years, they really haven't been able to do anything there because of that darned mouse. But they've got only about a year left before everything is done, and then they have to put something else in that area. They might as well. And they figured, we're going to do it. We're going to have a Simpsons-themed haunted house anyway. And we'll just do this one last time, and before the lawyers can come around, the event will be over and we're done. Let's just get it done. So they're going to do it at last. And the part of it is because they decided that it'd be a lot easier to have a haunted house right in the queue area. Instead of having the ride open, they're going to use all of that extended queue area for the Simpsons ride and build a haunted house there. Now, years and years ago, in 1992, the ride, it wasn't even Simpsons then, it was Back to the Future, and they had scare actors in the queue area. That was very effective. They thought, well, why not build a whole house there? Excuse me. Getting old sucks. Anyway, so in the queue area, and so they're going to build this house and finally do a house themed to The Simpsons. And of course, the Treehouse of Horror, which is an annual Halloween event that even predates Horror Nights in Orlando, because that started in 1990, whereas Horror Nights in Orlando started in 1991. And they're going to base this on the classic Twilight Zone episode, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. And they're going to kind of theme it this way. So you go in and you have a Simpsons version of Rod Serling introducing it in black and white. And then you go into the plot of that episode was that there are the Martians, or extraterrestrials, in order to conquer the Earth, just sow discord and division between us without actually doing anything. They let us destroy each other. So, by sowing, division between us, thinking, yeah, that person's an alien. The aliens are coming, and so, that person is an alien because he looks different from me. Or maybe he worships different from me. Maybe he loves differently from me. There's something about him that doesn't seem right. He's one of those aliens. I'll destroy him before he conquers us all. And so everyone's attacking and killing each other, and then this extraterrestrial power can come in and take over us because we've already defeated ourselves. Not that anything like that would happen in real life. Then or now. Serling is a bit of a prophet, wasn't he? Anyway, so that's going to be the theme of the house. And so you're going to have Homer strangling Ned Flanders, which he would like to do anyway. And then we have like Moses, like impaling Apu, and all of comic book guy beating Reverend Lovejoy to death with a mint edition copy of some old car. And then, oh my God, that's a mint edition. I better not use that. Here, I'll take this, this cheap thing that no one ever bought, and I'll use that to beat them to death. But whatever it is, all of this is going on. Everyone's destroying each other. And then at the end of the house, the real villains, Kang and Kodos, are revealed going, ha ha ha, stupid humans, now we can destroy them. They've destroyed each other, now we can just come in and take the place. But in the course of what do you eat? Well, you see, because it takes place in Springfield and it's about people attacking each other because they're aliens, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. Yes, you have lovely little treats shaped like kitty cats and puppy dogs. The dogs will actually be sort of hot dogs, and the cats will be, I don't know, tacos. And they'll be very delicious and scrumptious, I'm sure. Moving on. And then, of course, we have one more IP house. And this is bearing on the history of this event, not just in Orlando, but in Hollywood and in Japan and Singapore. I'm not sure about Beijing, which they don't even call Halloween Horror Nights because they can't really use the word horror in China because they frown on, saying horror. So they have some other, Halloween festival or so. I don't know what they call it over there. But it's basically they have haunted houses, they have scare zones, not as much gore, but they have the scare zones and houses and characters, entertainment themed to Halloween, which is not a holiday the Chinese know much about, but hey, it's a party. And so they do have an event like HHN in Beijing at Universal Studios there. So it's become increasingly global. But I don't know if they have one little thing in their park that they have in Singapore and in Osaka and Hollywood and here. And that's a little building that serves hot dogs and hamburgers. Do they serve hot dogs? I think they do. They have chili dogs or something? I think they do. That kind of food and malts, drinks, shakes. A little place called Mel's Drive-In, which is themed after the motion picture American Graffiti. Where were you in '62? I was extremely young. Anyway, so pardon. Let's just say I had a womb of my own in '62. Oh dear. At least until I absorbed my twin. Where was I? Oh yes, American Graffiti. So yes, Mel's Drive-In. And at every Horror Nights event, going all the way back to 1991 in Florida, and I'm not sure if they did this in 1986 in Hollywood, because they had a Mel's Drive-In there, and they still do. They do something clever, which is the sign that reads Mel's Drive-In, is they black out the letter R and the letter V, so it reads Mel's Die-In. And that's been going on since Horror Nights began, and it continues to be a tradition even in those other countries. But we've never been told what Mel's Die-In is. Where's the backstory? Where's the lore of Mel's Die-In? And now at last we're going to have a haunted house that tells us all about Mel's Die-In. See, apparently it was quite the thing back in the 60s. And then, of course, it fell on hard times, and eventually the drive-in closed down. People don't... I think the only surviving drive-in where there's, girls on roller skates that come to your car and, the old-fashioned drive-in. Sonic, I think, has kind of tried to continue that. But for the most part, it doesn't happen anymore. It's a thing of the past. And this particular drive-in faded away and is forgotten. It closed down, and no one ever tore it down and built anything new on that spot. It's just in a weird part of town. It's been left alone, abandoned for years, for decades. And there's a reason no one really ventures over there. You know, they say it's haunted. Indeed, all the kids who died, so many of them, you know, the quarterback and his girlfriend, the cheerleader, who had too much to drink on prom night and never got home safe. There's the guy who was drag racing, dude, and, you know, another incident of vehicular homicide. So many songs about children dying in motor accidents back in the 60s, you know. It was kind of a theme in a lot of Dead Man's Curve, Leader of the Pack, all of these, you have that kind of morbidity. And of course there's that one kid who went off and ended in the jungles of Vietnam. That's kind of the way it goes, isn't it? Back in those days. But they all came back to the drive-in, and they never left again. They haunt the place that was so important to them in their mortal life. And so that's what it is, a haunted drive-in, and the R and the V fell off the sign, and it reads Mel's Die-In. You can go in and get a snack, but don't expect to come back. But we're going to find out all about this in the special television program, because this is why it's an IP, because it's going to be featured on the hit television show Guy Fieri's Diners, Die-Ins, and Dives, where he goes to Mel's Die-In and meets to find out all about it, and never comes out alive. Yes, Guy Fieri will end up being on the menu by the end of it. And so you get to have lovely little snacks with flavor made out of Mr. Fieri's intestines. What treats. So those are our 5 IP houses. Now what about the original houses? The original houses. Oh, yes. Well, there's another 5. So, the first of these, you could consider it, excuse me, another installment in Scary Tales. I'm not sure if that's how they'll present it. It might be seen as related to scare zones and haunted houses they had recently about, you know, covens and witches. Or even the Goblin House from last year. But so it's going to have a more traditional Halloween and a lot of witch and spook, and essentially in the house you go into a haunted forest, very dark and scary, and as you go through there you come upon a gingerbread house, and they'll have pumpkin patch full of spooky Halloween pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, and there'll be goblins in the house and ghosts and skeletons as you go from room to room. You know, you go into the garden where the pumpkin patch is, and of course it's all reigned over by a witch who, when you get to the final scene, there she is, and along the way you might get little treats, delicious sweet treats, little pumpkin tartlets and such, because they're fattening you up, you know, you naughty little children. And then you end up to find the witch, and where does the house end up? In the oven, of course. That's where you end up. Very good. The next one is also related to previous scare zones and houses. Remember Dead Man's Wharf? And I think, was it called Dead Man's Pier? Something like that. A sort of Lovecraftian village of creepy fisher folk. And this will be similar. In fact, it's similar to one scene in the haunted house that they had recently, expanding that into its own house. And that's the Dead Man's Tavern, like a sea tavern, and like you would have near in a coastal town with very much of that sort of Cthulhu-y feel as you go through the rooms and get chased down the hallways by the fishmen, like the scene in the book where the guy is literally barely gets out of the inn with his life in the little town of Innsmouth, and all sorts of, they're after you with their gaffs and their goals and nets and all the things you'd expect them to have, and they become increasingly horrific and more aquatic, gills and tentacles and such. And one of the most terrifying moments is as you get to the end and you see a mirror, you can see your own, and they kind of back off and they aren't so interested in killing you anymore. And when you get to the mirror, you see why. Because using special effects, you'll see that you yourself are starting to obtain what they call the Innsmouth, look. I guess I'm a fishman too. I always felt a little shallow, but I guess I'm a deep one after all. Yes, and then you go into complete madness because all of the angles will start to go the wrong way, and it's like hallucinatory, and then of course gigantic tentacles as the stars are right. And in this house you'll have moments to stop and enjoy some of the tavern fare, which includes such lovely treats as fried calamari and squid ink pasta. Very good. So, the third original house is set in the city of New Orleans. And they had, of course, voodoo-themed houses in Bayou, but this is more urban. So all of it's sort of a bit of an Anne Rice feel to it. And there was that writer from the 90s, one of the what do they call that movement? Was it Scream Punk? Or, I forget. It was sort of a punk rock horror movement that was going on in the day. It's been a while. That was over 30 years ago. But his name was, I hate using someone's dead name, but I don't know what his name is today, but wrote under the name Poppy Bright. That was his name before transitioning. When he transitioned, this author stopped writing and became a chef, and now actually works in a restaurant somewhere in New Orleans, I believe, last time I checked. I think they may just be called Z Bright or Z Bright. I don't know, because that was the middle initial. But I don't really know what the name is today. But that was the name that he wrote under back in the day, before transitioning into from female to male. But those books are amazing if you find them. It's sort of like a punk rock version of Anne Rice. And so that's what this house is going to kind of be like, a bit of a wild New Orleans romp with vampires and Marie Laveau, of course, and loups-garous, which are the shape-shifting werewolf-like creatures, and zombies, of course, and lots of voodoo. The New Orleans horror, the Crescent City just sort of lends itself to horror. I mean, it's been the scene of so many wonderful, from the Vampire Chronicles to that whole season of American Horror Story with the witches, the Coven season, all of it, the Mayfair witches, it's all set there. So they're doing a remarkable house with homages and references to years of New Orleans haunted lore. And there's lots of, what's that terrible woman, Delphine something? She was actually a real person who tortured slaves and was a serial killer sort of person who, all sorts of, the Axeman, a real life serial killer from all sorts of marvelous people back in the, not marvelous in a good way, but there's a haunted history to that city that's unparalleled, I think, to many others. So it makes a really good place for a haunted house. And if you have a culinary bent, it's a great food city. So make sure you go through that house and enjoy some really good gumbo. beignets and other delightful New Orleans treats as you haunt the city. They may not even have to use any floats from Mardi Gras because there's so much you can do with New Orleans in this genre. So, and the fourth original house also is related in some ways to a scare zone they did a couple years ago. Remember in Central Park they set up all of that sort of Nordic Viking sort of scare zone. Again, I don't remember the actual name of the zone, but you remember they had the big blood eagle thing where the lungs are pulled out through the back, sacrificed to Odin, and all of those Vikings and berserkers and you know, the sort of shamans, and other, Norse horrors going on in there, and they're going to have all of that in the house as well, but they'll go beyond just human evil and horror, but not just crazed Vikings and berserk, but they'll have not just berserks, but actual transform into bear horror. So HHN Bear will show up as the berserker has turned from a human into a bear, and bear will be in this house. And you'll also have trolls and other horrifying dark elves and other Nordic demons and creatures that are quite horrifying, to put this Scandinavian slaughterhouse going on. So in all of this, you'll find that as frightening as the house could be in monsters and terrors at every turn, you'll also discover that the food is even more frightening. Yes, so you might be cautious about actually getting any of the food because, well, there'll be lutefisk, which is fish that has been cured with lye. This is considered a Christmas treat in many northern countries, and even in North Dakota, other parts of our country with a Nordic, with a lot of people from Scandinavia. But, oh my, it's an acquired taste. And even more frightening, hakaro, which is an Icelandic treat. Let's just say it's fermented shark. And how is it fermented? Ooh, look it up. Hakaral, I believe. Anyway, look up hakaro, Icelandic shark, fermented shark, and see how it's fermented. Ew! He's giving homework during this video. Yeah. And then there's, of course, the lovely treat, the sweet treat called salt licorice. But I have to warn you, it's not salt licorice. Yeah, it's not salted with sodium chloride like regular table salt. No, it's salted with ammonium chloride. So like I said, the food is more frightening than the house itself. All right, and then we come to the signature original house. This is the icon house for the event. Da 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 da! Yes. So, backstory here. When Professor Oddfellow returned and reclaimed his glory and his carnival a few years ago, remember that? Yeah. A certain clown that we all know and love said, "What the fuck?" and just said, "Fine," and gave up, decided to leave the carnival life. So instead of being an entertainer in the carnival business, decided to go into a new line of work. So our dear friend Jack thought, I'll open a restaurant. And so this is Jack's Cary, Ohio Cafe that he opened in the dear little quaint city of Cary, Ohio, where he's not really retired, but now set up his shop in this lovely little diner, this lovely little restaurant that he's opened along with his other friends. And so we have the usher as your maitre d', And then you have inside chance working tables, and then of course Eddie is sort of your bartender, but he also will sometimes go into the kitchen to chop meat because he loves doing that, you know. But he's our bartender. And then, of course, Jack himself is the chef owner. Chef Jack is our icon for this year, and that's Jack in his new outfit, because every few years Jack has to change his outfit. It's a rule. And so now he's wearing a little chef's hat, and he's got his apron on, and he's cooking up wonderful stuff for you. What the hell is that? Get off my screen. I got something popping up, interfering in my video process, and I'm nearly an hour in. I'm not going to stop now, God damn it. So he's got this. Jack is doing this wonderful food going on here, and there's something popped up on my screen, and it was like, nope, get rid of that. I think it wants to update some software somewhere. Not right now. Ah, jeez. So, as I was saying, it's a wonderful, wonderful, delightful place where you get to enjoy some of Jack's culinary treats, which are, you know, shaped like human organs. You know, little livers and whatever, spleens, unless they actually are human organs. No, it wouldn't be that. Quite delicious treats. I don't think there'll be many vegan options in this house, though. Oh well. But there's something else in this house. But I'm not going to talk about it just yet, because it also pops up in the scare zone, and it's important. So I will wait till we get to the scare zone. So that's Jack's Kerry Cafe. And now, scare zones! I don't know why, but scare zones are continually shrinking. Isn't it awful? They used to have so many all around the park. You know? And this year, it's even worse. They're eliminating any scare zone activity in Hollywood Boulevard. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. Why Hollywood Boulevard is not being utilized. You know, it was under-decorated last year, and this year it's just not even being touched. So the scare zones are really only going to be in New York, in Central Park, and San Francisco. Now, why would they keep that and get rid of Hollywood? San Francisco, where it gets all crowded and congested and it's hard to go, you know, if you're going to drop one, drop that one and leave the boulevard out. I don't understand it. So those are the three big scare zones. And then they're going to have a fourth scare zone, if you can call it, because it doesn't go down the street. It's just right in the very front, a meet and greet icon scare zone, like they did the past couple of years. Just a sort of meet and greet further up thing right at the front of the park. So in New York, the scare zone is going to be, and they're going to theme the zones pretty much to the areas that they are and to the food options in that area. So in New York, there's going to have a lot of, like, you know, pretzels and Coney Island hot dogs or whatever, and Irish food from Finnegan's, and they're going to have surly, you know, New Yorker types caricatures, cabbies, and the kind of people you might meet in New York, transformed horrifically, grotesquely, and, you know, they're not actually serving food in the zone, but the idea is to get you to go in and buy stuff inside the restaurants, and, you know, Italian, you know, mafia types trying to attack you, and of course that's right by Louis Pizza, that kind of thing. So it sort of themes into the existing food options that you're there. Weird, but that's what they're doing in that area. There will be actual outside food booths too, by the way. And some of the food booths, like the one in Sting Alley, might be themed into the scare zone to some degree, just like they've been doing in the years past. So they'll have those things will still be going. And then in Central Park, it'll be themed it'll be a Latin American zone. So you're going to have chupacabras, you're going to have La Llorona, you're going to have all the El Monstruos they had last year, and other, Latin American, Mexican creatures in the woods, because it'll tie right in to the little Mexican La Bamba, and where they have a window where they'll be serving Mexican food there, so or Latin American food, arepas, whatever they want to serve there, as you go up and down through the scare zone, just like in New York. And in San Francisco, it'll be themed to Chinese food, and thus Chinese characters. There'll be, the sort of demons and monsters and creatures of Chinese mythology, evil empresses and terracotta warriors, and what's the creature? It's like a kitsune in Japanese, but what's it called in Chinese? It's I forget, but it's a shape-shifting fox demon. They've got those Howley or something like that. I forget. There's the hopping vampires that hop about, and other similar sort of creatures, all there in San Francisco as part of a Chinatown of terror, and of course Chinese food served in the food booths. So in a way that fits in. So those are the big scare zones, the ones that are left, and then back at the front of the park will be the meet and greet, and the meet and greet will be Chef Jack. He'll be there with his little chef's hat and this, but he'll not be alone. You see, a couple of years ago, a thing happened that was purely unintentional. And a person on social media was going to Horror Nights and saw, I think it was the year that, I think it was 2022, I believe, and they saw Wicked Growth, the house that was supposed to, it was 2021, yes. They saw Wicked Growth, which was supposed to have been a house in 2020, but of course we all know what happened that year. But when they actually had the house in 2021, in the entranceway with all the pumpkins, they saw one little cute, adorable pumpkin, just sort of with a blank expression on his face, that's straight. I have the little drink cup thing. I should have showed it here as a visual aid, but you know who I mean, Lil Boo. Named it Lil Boo. This guy on Twitter called it Lil Boo and said, I will protect him forever. And this caught on. This went viral. And everybody started calling that one pumpkin Lil Boo. And Universal, they actually went and they moved that little pumpkin from where it was, where anyone could just sort of grab it, and put it higher up on the pumpkin display so that to prevent anyone from just grabbing it, because they were afraid someone's going to come and steal that guy because he's so popular. So they moved him to another location that's out of reach, and so he would be safe. But they quickly realized people started making Lil Boo merchandise, DIY, T-shirts and stuff, and Universal said, good heavens, quick, let's make this officially our property, intellectual property, and tell these people to cease and desist, and then we'll sell the merch. And so they started doing that. And after that, it just sort of took off, and they made a little screamer of Lil Boo, and they made the little cup, the little sippy drink cup. They made plush. I have a big ass plush in the other room. There's this great Lil Boo plush, and last year they had the little guy that sits on your shoulder. All of this. Lil Boo is such an iconic, by acclamation, an icon by acclamation. So Lil Boo has taken over the whole thing because Universal came to a sudden realization. It's the kawaii factor. Cute sells. Cute sells. The spooky, scary icon. Your Bloody Mary, your Lady Luck, your Caretaker, all of these frightening creatures that have been, de rigueur for Horror Nights for generations, from Jack the Clown to who are the two women last year? What were they called? I don't even remember the names of the two women who were like the icons last year. Was it Death and Decay or Desire and Destruction? I don't know what they were called. I think they both started with a D, like they. And I don't remember their names. That's terrible. I don't remember the names of the icons last year. But you remember the two girls that were sitting up above on the archway, and they were so, so frightening and all of that. Well, what are we going to do? What do people really like? They like the cute Lil Boo. Lil Boo, he's the one. So we'll come up with something cute and adorable, and by gosh, the merch will fly off the shelves. Yeah, cha-ching, cha-ching. So they came up with a little character that will accompany Jack, and it's a little skull, like, and it's, just adorable little kind of cute skull. And it's not just a skull, well, let me tell you the backstory. It seems that at Cary, Ohio Cafe, where Jack was, his new Jack's Cary Cafe, that a certain very haughty and self-important French food critic showed up there and went in there just like the scene in Ratatouille. And goes in there to try the food. This can't be any good. Oh. And completely lost his head over Jack's delicious cuisine. Completely. Yeah. And so there's this little skull, a little French skull, and he's wearing a beret, and he has a little French mustache, and he sits up on Jack's shoulder. And his name is Bon Appetit. And yes, so yeah, you can guarantee this is going to sell, make lots of money, because he's adorable little tiny icon mascot to become another moneymaker for the whole event. So that's our icons for this year. As I said, I have no idea about the entertainment. So there you have it. All Secrets of Halloween Horror Nights 34 revealed. It is 34 this year, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. We missed a year, so it'd be 34. That's right. So, that is, if any of us survive to Halloween. Oh, here comes the cat again. So with that, I wish you all a very happy April 1st, and enjoy the rest of your miserable little lives. Farewell.